Alright, we're back from an extremely laggy ed. Possibly connected to something on the internet flickering on our side, possibly not. But there goes my big rank up chance that they were talking about. And we're returning to what I was saying before that cut me off. So, you can consider that a player like me who is trying to play pressure is picking scissors and hoping that the opponent also picks scissors and is able to defend against my pressure, or picks paper and gets beaten by my pressure. If they pick scissors, I'll keep on picking scissors myself, because in a fighting game, it's not so easy to just switch what you're choosing. If I'm pressuring you, you don't get to just pick rock immediately. Some characters can, but not all. If you are picking scissors as a pressure player at the lower levels, you do have an advantage. You have an advantage because defending correctly is difficult to do. Defending correctly against certain mix-ups or just against very good spacing is difficult, primarily because people who learn pressure know exactly how to go to this particular place or that particular place. But it's secondarily difficult because even if you know exactly what you're doing, both lag and just nerves can make it difficult to choose the correct thing.
Round one.
So it's like saying that one has the chance of attempting to pick scissors against scissors and failing. And if you fail and end up choosing paper by accident, you lose. So here we have two pressure players duking it out, and the same sort of thing happens. We're both just trying to find the button that our opponent doesn't respond well to, the part of our pressure that they can't handle well, and we're going to abuse that to win. So this person at the moment is not immediately apparent, but you can see that they keep on. Not only do they close in, but they specifically try to do certain things once they're close. They also back off sometimes, giving themselves space. But a lot of their spacing is based on that. And even though we're both playing sort of footsie characters, I have a lot of experience with Bison. They're even playing my Bison colors, so it's not like I don't know what I'm doing here. But that, for example, was me attempting pressure that I wasn't so good at anymore. But because I can identify them as a pressure player, I know what I can try for, and I know what I can push on, and occasionally they're going to try to beat it, and end up, quote-unquote, picking scissors. In terms of pressure, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm trying to get close to them all the time. It could easily mean that I'm waiting to see what they do to respond instantly and then keep things going from there. And they're doing the same thing. Because pressure players have this bad tendency to both hit a bunch of buttons in neutral, or entire moves actually, and hope that we figure out something. Hope that the other person's spacing is off, stuff like that. We find this interesting, but there are a lot of people that don't. Did I hit the right button today? Did they hit the right button today? It's very complicated. stuff like that is common to us. But you hit the wrong button and everything falls apart because that's the nature of the game. So you can see that this is actually how we're both thinking, but the key here is that we're both expecting the other to block moves. And that's sort of why the throws go in, as well as some other things that you can see slightly in my motion. We're expecting the other to block pressure strings, but then when faced with something else, we expect the other to hit buttons, and hopefully fail because they hit the wrong buttons. So it can come out seeming pretty erratic, but we know what we're doing. For example, they did head stomp there because it's actually difficult due to some things about Chun-Li to do her EX bird on certain knockdowns if you weren't really prepared for it. As a Bison player, I can tell you that is why they did that there, because there's not a lot of reasons to do it other than the fact that I was in the corner. So that's the key to remember for pressure players. Pressure players are scissors because they are mentally aware of the difficulty in consistently picking the right thing all the time. That is what they're counting on. They're counting on the fact that you can't do everything right. But their plans are based on the idea that you will. So they pick their actions such that they will be safe even if you do everything right, namely blocking. But hoping for the moment where you don't to save them from whatever. So, watch this match, keep that in mind at all times. We are both consistently picking scissors as our option. Now how do you beat a pressure player? You either pick the right thing, or wait for them to pick the wrong thing, like that. It's fairly frenetic. We enjoy the rush, but it's not necessarily the best strategy for the game itself. There's a lot of motion involved, a lot of potentially bad ideas involved. And it doesn't tend to lead to a lot of good defense overall. It tends to lead to a lot of crazy things that basically are supposed to look like defense, but don't always manage to. But even the slightest mistake or mistiming will cause you a lot of problems, like that. They delay something because it's easier to try to hit the EX bird, and they know that I'm going to try to do it because of various things they've done to me before. Oof. I thought it was 6 frames. I must have watched over too long. And there goes that at the end of the match, or not. And that was what I mean. Pressure players like I don't necessarily get good at the game for a while, because we're too busy doing a lot of random things, and those random things have to be refined later. So don't always assume that that pressure that they're putting in actually has any good meaning. They might just be making you annoyed. Which brings us to the next type of player. The next type of player to be considered in the rock, paper, scissors analogy is the paper player. Paper players are the ones who try to get in close so that they can do damaging things from close. These damaging things normally are difficult, have long startups, etc. But they tend to put the opponent back where you wanted them again. Grapplers are the archetypal paper of this game. They don't care if you're blocking. They don't care about how good your defense is in general. But they'll destroy you if you give them enough, and they'll keep doing it. So if you're thinking you're going to pick rock and keep them out, but they succeed at getting to you, well, that's probably bad for you, unless you have some invincible reversal ready to keep them off. However, keeping in mind with the analogy, they don't deal well with pressure players most of the time, because they are playing paper versus scissors. The pressure player has all of the strings. They should, most of the time, know exactly where they should be standing, know exactly where they should be going to avoid being thrown, and are usually hitting buttons in long plus style block strings. So they're always constantly either in range but hitting more things, or out of range to be grabbed. Rule number 1 of Colleen, don't play footsies with Colleen. Really bad habit I have to do. Colleen is, as a character, a pressure character also, which means she ends up being weak to zoners. There's not a lot she can do this with. As you can see, this player is going full on with the pressure. However, I'm terrible at zoning with Chun-Li, so I doubt that anything good is going to come out of this that way. I could try to change style entirely. But a better approach would be to figure out where this person's skills in that part come from, and try to exploit them somehow. Because they're expecting that to work a lot for some reason. It's pressure-y. So what can I do to keep their pressure out of my way? Probably little. And that was so not what I expected to do. But Colleen can do pressure by doing that. By putting out that button in that way. And at certain ranges where it becomes difficult to deal with it. And she's plus on that button, so it's difficult to do anything about it overall. However, they're waiting for me to basically hang myself. I could just not. So this particular style allows me to apply pressure while still not necessarily giving in to them. All I have to do is find the thing that this player likes to do, and then remove it as a main option from their arsenal. This isn't always easy, because players don't just give up their best option or have poor ways of dealing with it. But this person's own is fairly blatant, and I'm just dealing with it badly. Yep. So this is a matter of terrible handling of their key skill. Rather than that this particular opponent is really easy to get beaten by. And that's again what I was talking about before. This opponent is winning because I'm not handling their scissors. I end up choosing paper. And by choosing paper, I lose. I'm not truly choosing paper, I'm just attempting scissors in response and getting paper. Now that move is -7, so technically I should just punish it all the time. But how? What exactly is the punish I'm looking for? Do I have any button that is consistent about that? And you see, I know they're going to keep doing it. And they probably know that they can get away with continuing to do it because I'm not really handling it properly. Because I'm playing pressure when I shouldn't be. And part of the reason why I started on Colleen Bot is because I really need to punish that very well. When it should be fairly easy because there's nothing that I need. Note now that they're going to stay over there for a while. I have the life lead, so I technically have already won, given the way they've been playing up until now. This is the easier solution to making them anxious and keeping up the life lead. That was weird. So this now is me switching to zoning enough. Oh dear, one moment. Alright, there's the good mute function of the HyperX. Unfortunately, phone call, distraction, problems. I have the devil's luck as the same. Or, wait, no, that's the other way around.
You lose.
So by adding a new form of scissors into their motion, and making sure that I can't do certain things, they managed to win that fight. You can actually throw her out of that on the way in, but it is a fairly difficult reaction. And that's the point. Pressure by forcing your opponent into difficult reaction situations and hope that they fail. The way to beat that would have been to continue doing what I was doing. I expect that most zoners would have either found the right timings to throw things, or managed to throw her away from them, because zoners tend to have throws that are much better at putting distance between them and the opponent. That would have solved the issue quite neatly. So while I would end up faking being a zoner, and against Colleen it's not a very good thing to do with buttons, I definitely don't have any problems with it. The problem will come when eventually, as with most situations, the opponent manages to get something started, and it's a little bit harder to do. So, fortunately for everyone, it looks like we've got a 10-win streak Zangief on the prowl here. And since it is very difficult to play Zangief in most ways other than the close-in style, we're probably going to finally get to see our close-in type player and paper. So obviously the close-in style involves moving forward as fast as you can. But it also means that you have to be able to handle zoners. So there is definitely some space where they will walk forward or walk backward. But it's mostly about, you have to think about other things rather than considering it to be simply about the player's mindset overall. If they're good enough, note what he does now. But now he doesn't have the life lead, so he can't hang back. He has to think about how to get in on me. This is just a natural emergence of Zangief, of course, but Zangief is a character who has been built without too many other tools for the purpose. He's built as basically pure paper. Or iron in his case. So now you see, as soon as he gets the chance to get close enough in some way that he knows for sure will work, he does so. But he doesn't do a jumping attack because jumping attacks don't help grapplers normally. Laura's probably the only one who can make a good use out of it. He doesn't have to come for me now though. Now he does. Okay, I'm gonna ask. That catches bat dashes. Okay. I probably did it wrong. And I failed my execution there. Also, more accurately, I failed the spacing. Because I was invested in the Hadoken spacing hit. So now we've gone back to him being on a spacing where he has to do stuff. And me having the advantage and the heavy punch to keep it out just basically as long as I want, so to speak. Oof. Ah, and mistimed that again. Ooh, a light kick. Good stuff. Now I have to worry about getting hit by it myself. But I think he ended up doing the wrong move. Close-in players don't tend to be too complicated. You'll find a lot of hate for this sort of character if you travel in certain circles. This is because paper got really strong in this version of the game, relative to how it has been in previous Street Fighters. And players who play as zoners, i.e. Rock, really don't like that. The only true situation where it gets reversed and a character who is otherwise zoning gets to have a huge advantage over a character who is closing in is probably the Zangief versus Dalsim matchup. And a very skilled Zangief has particular ways of doing it. The main reason that Dalsim is problematic is more so because he can teleport away and then makes closing in itself not really work. It's not really about, oh, zoning beats Zangief. If zoning beat Zangief, then people would be a lot less upset about the way the game plays actually, but it does not do so anymore. He has enough tools to really put some stress on zoning players. So, the next type of player, for those of you who are fans or in any way related to the Big Bang Theory, you might know it through here. They have a further extension of the rock, paper, scissors concept. Lizard and Spock. We're going to consider the naturalist player to be the lizard. They just play their character however their character is supposed to be played. They try to squeeze out everything they can from that character. Ultra Omega 3000, huh? It's really required that they play a character that suits them rather well, or things don't go well. This, however, is not what this player seems to be doing. This player is more of a close-in Balrog. Because Balrog is not really a pressure character, and he's not really too good at anything other than effectively zoning. I'm not sure if it's laggy, I can't tell that well. But let's assume that I am a Chun-Li naturalist. I need to learn every single little thing I can do. For example, I used to study this matchup based on, okay, I can hit light kick here because he was at a particular spacing. I mean standing light kick. And it used to be 4. So if he did certain moves, I could actually punish him. I had certain other things I could do, like getting the hit directly after him doing him doing a dash punch and me getting hit by it. I could do super from that, for example. So how do you beat the close-in character with the pressure character? Well, you just have to understand your pressure well enough to stop them from doing anything. So I'm going to switch to trying that sort of thing now, rather than just poking at him, and we'll see what happens. 3 bars, huh? Guess it was a little laggy. But not laggy enough that that wasn't mostly my fault. So Balrog should be treated as a zoner in most of his motions regardless of what else is going on. And this person is very buttonsy in very specific ways, so the question is, what buttons do I get to poke at him with, if anything? I'm not sure I can actually with the lag at all. But let's see what I can come up with. That wasn't particularly good play. That was just me doing exactly what pressure characters do and hitting my opponent until they couldn't do anything about it anymore. For those of you who are not aware, that move actually beats that particular thing that Balrog does. Ah, I didn't cancel. Did I? Oh, guess I did. So that is how you go about it from the other side. You realize your opponent is playing close in. They're probably going to try to do things when they're close to you because they're already feeling as if they're doing good things. They're not in the mental state for defending. So you put as much pressure on them as you can. I overdid it because if you do it that hard, most opponents will... Okay, guess no rematch. Most opponents will adapt a little bit and put on more defense, but if you're really good at your pressure, their defense is often not going to matter because of their mindset. Makes me sad you can't pick win quotes by holding buttons at the end of rounds like you used to be able to before. If I were to try to defeat that player as a naturalist Chun-Li, then I would be trying to find the right spacings to throw out key token, and the right spaces to hit footsie buttons, to play footsies in general. But it's entirely possible that none of that would have worked. Why? Because naturalists don't usually get defeated by footsies. They know too much about their character and their ranges. And close-in people don't care. Pressure also beats zoners sometimes, but again, this is not really about the mentalities of the players. If you don't change something about what you're doing. If you just go all out with your style against someone who is just going all out with their style with no considerations, you get a response similar to the Balrog match I just had. The final type of player we will consider to be Spock in this case. And you don't have to know the Big Bang Theory version to figure out why this works or doesn't work, or what overcomes anything else. It is generally true that, if you're going by the same analogy, rock smashes lizard. Because if you are playing a naturalist, it is usually very difficult to beat a dedicated zone. So what is this Akuma? Well, at the moment I'm not sure, but they seem to have at least a little bit of what I'm looking for in today. The frustration player must spend some time convincing you that they are not what they are, that they are something else. And they do this in order to force you to fall into a pattern, and then try to defeat that pattern. I can be that sort of player, but honestly I'm not that good at it. As you get higher level, as mentioned in the previous video, the classifications mean a little bit less because players pick up more skills. So I should be trying to convince this player that I am good at defense so that they try to beat me in ways that resolve through zoning or something. But I don't really like being faced with zoning, so I don't really want to do that. Still can't get that combo. Normally I wouldn't practice such combos in matches, but for those of you who are familiar with the stream, if I rank up too much, I'll get out of the tier where I am able to give proper demonstrations. So, for now, this is a little bit of our sandbag casuals, so to speak, and instructionals. A frustration player has to convince you that they are doing one thing, then break your expectation, and then capitalize on that as heavily as possible. Therefore, they tend to be similar to the naturalists. But they often get beat by naturalists. The reason is because naturalists don't tend to think too hard about any given thing their character is doing. It's not in their nature, basically. So at the moment I'm doing something like that. I'm just turning my brain off. But you can't condition a naturalist. They're either going to be too stubborn, or they're not even thinking about any of that. It's just, my character does this here, my character does this very, very specific cool thing here. They're not paying attention to you. That's a good way to put it. It's a lizard. The lizard, in a way you could say it's a lizard brain thing. They're not paying attention to you. They know that their character does these combos and has these footsies, and they can do this and this and this and this, and they don't care about you. So when you try to frustrate them, they just don't pay any attention at all. And I'm playing like that now. I know, I'm not thinking. I know what Chun-Li can do. I know where I'll get hit. I know what footsies I can play. And I know certain things that work well against Akuma. So I'm doing those things. Now, I probably should be trying for something more, or something more sensible overall. Like, that was me trying to do something that I think Chun-Li can do, and failing at it. But again, I wasn't really caring about the fact, I wasn't thinking, oh, my opponent is trying this thing, my opponent is trying that thing, my opponent knows this range, they might be frustrating me. I don't care. It just doesn't come up. I know that range, I know that people like to hit buttons at that range, so I did it. It was a terrible idea. I mean, he had full super. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about my stuff is here, and I want to do my stuff, so I'm doing my stuff. You give me a minute while I do my stuff. Dash in combo. Terrible idea. I should have let him just quick rise and left him and baited it, but I have a combo, so I should use my combo because that's the natural thing to do with combos. That was a bad idea too, really. Because at this point, I'm not taking into account whether or not this player is the type that would try to pressure me on wake up. I'm just hitting it because I can. Because it seems like a thing that is done at this point of my game. I did that mostly to stop him from activating certain things. So if that had been a naturalist Akuma, and he did seem sort of like one, he wasn't playing footsies, he wasn't trying to get particularly close, he was using all of Akuma's tools at the level that I would expect from someone of this rank points, in spaces that are decent for using them. And I basically flatly ignored. So the naturalist becomes difficult to analyze and therefore can't really be defeated by a frustration player. So naturalist Akuma goes up against naturalist Chun-Li. If anyone wins, it's because the other player is stronger. However, if you had a frustration Akuma, the Spock Akuma, the analytical Akuma, they would have been trying to figure out what is this Chun-Li player's game plan? What is the brainy thing that this Chun-Li is aiming to do? And in that case, they would potentially have failed because my brain was off. That was as brainless as plain Chun-Li tends to get. She has a lot of options, so you probably should think through a lot of things, but if you learn a lot of things, if you grind a lot, I don't grind a lot. If you grind a lot, you can autopilot through things with basically any character. The problem comes when your character doesn't have a lot of technical options and are limited in what they can do naturally to one of the other styles. That's partly why people got upset when Guile got good offense, because it means that a naturalist Guile is now no longer automatically a zoner. You have to worry about Guile trying to get in on you now. Guile doesn't do well with pressure. He's more so either zoning or close in. But he definitely has better options now than he has in many games before. But as you'll see, you have all the signs of zoning Guile right here. They'll do dash in throws on wake up. And a bunch of other things that would only make sense if you are a zoner. Only a zoner will think to do some of this stuff. Was that lag? Can't tell. And I missed that combo. That was good on their part. I could have baited it, but I'm a pressure player, so I expect him to block. I don't expect him to do ES flash. So what he's doing here is using the normal zoning style to throw out a bunch of buttons that I then have to worry about. And as you can see, it makes my anti-airs difficult because of the ranges he jumps from. He does jump, but Chun-Li's anti-airs ain't that great as it is. And I've gotten myself sort of out of the habit of doing the standing light kick anti-air, so that's sort of a problem. And I couldn't do that properly. Right, that motion is the best Guile can do for pressure normally. But it's not bad. So you'll notice I don't try to anti-air him at all, basically, even though there are times when I think, you know what you're probably going to do here, you're probably going to jump. But if I try to anti-air you, I'm going to lose, because that's attempting to pick scissors, and I know that my opponent has picked rock. My opponent has specifically chosen one of the hardest ranges to anti-air available.
Round one.
Now, the important thing is to consider that a zoner isn't always going to try to stay away from you. They're just trying to control space. The pressure character also isn't always going to try to get in close to you. They are just trying to find something that you do wrong in your style that they can beat, and therefore start their pressure. But see, you get meaties like that. You get meaties like that from zoners. It's like, why would you hit that? But it's a perfectly good idea for them, because the rest of their style has made you think about all these other things that they could do, and you're not really thinking about options like that one. So now I'm going to try to focus on how to beat this guile as it should be done. The idea here is that if I let him control the space too much, I won't be able to do anything. So how can I stop him from controlling space? Well, first of all, is to let him have it. And this doesn't seem like a very good plan most of the time, but if you learn your own character's ranges and the correct timings for your flash kick punishes, apparently, you can let him have some space. And the reason I was able to do that is because I expect him to walk up to me and do nothing sometimes. But I should have not done that because he's a zoner. He's much more likely to try to bait me than anything else. This is the reversal. But he picks rock and I can't get in. And until I can get in, I can't do anything. The one point I had where I could have really done anything would have been to open him up on the walk forward throw, which he's beat with the crouching medium kick. And if I had dashed forward and blocked, or walked forward and then blocked, or tried to walk back out of the pressure, then the same thing would have happened. I would have been clipped by the crouching medium kick. So, understanding your own playstyle among those 5 can tell you how you need to try to approach a particular matchup, your chances of winning that matchup, how much you need to grind against a particular character to do particular things. Note that I didn't do any of what you're supposed to do against Guile. You're supposed to walk forward and try to clip him with crouching medium buttons. Too slow. But, to summarize again, let's go around the circle while this match loads up. Zoners are rock. You must try to break their defense, or getting close to them and negate their zoning. Close-in characters, close-in players are paper. Their aim is to close in, to nullify what rock does, and so on. Pressure characters are scissors. The pressure character is counting on the fact that you are going to pick paper by accident, and they defeat close-in characters in this way by even when they get close, the pressure character will wake up with buttons. They have that tendency, as I mentioned before, and then once they've knocked you off them, hopefully they'll get their pressure started. This is part of the reason why Chun-Li's not the greatest pressure character, because once she knocks you off with her EX reversal, she doesn't get anything after it. So she has to be sort of hybrid. But I'm going to try to demonstrate that now. I'm going to pressure this Lara, and I'm going to hope that by pressuring this Lara, they mess up. And they're still going to try to get close to me. But I'm just going to throw some random buttons in places and hope that they get beaten up. But it looks like we have what I mentioned yesterday. We don't have the close-in Lara. We have zoning Lara. It's hard to tell what zoning Lara look like because you'd think they throw out claps all the time, but no, they do stuff like that. There's a specific rhythm to the zoning Lara because they're not really trying to fight you from the space you'd expect. They're trying to get out and create that situation. I'm very bad at fighting zoning Lara, but there's a specific reason for it that has more to do with my character. In order to fight zoning Lara, I have to turn off my tendency to do spinning bird kick completely. I have to play pure footsies and use only this. So I have to spend the minimum amount of time holding down back that I can manage, and the maximum amount of time doing random head stomps and similar. And dash in, throwing, and similar things. See, held down back for too long, stood in place for too long, and caused myself problems. Once again, I'm sort of frustrated because again, I don't really do well with zoners, especially don't do well with zoning Lara. Oof. I think I mistimed that. Didn't cancel the super. And I don't know what I was doing there. Jump? That made sense. That was a good jump. So I'm just hitting random stuff. Because once a zoner is close to you, that sort of thing works. You just hit random buttons. They're gonna try for something slow, normally. That's just the way they play in general, and that's why they'll hit heavy buttons in neutral or go for overheads against a character who could beat the overhead with a single button. It's just the way they tend to play the game until they get better or change character or something. See? But you have to be careful in my case about your throw ranges, when you read that they're going to try a particular thing. But because they have such weird habits on wake-ups, you can wake up with a bunch of weirdness. I really need to do that better. Right, so now she's going to try to take some space, and you know what? I'm going to give her. Take it. Don't need it. Because that will happen. Oh wait, I won the last fight. Okay. But because they're not as confident in certain things, you can give them a lot of room. It's only when unexpected things happen to you like that that you have to worry a lot. And you can generally just hit buttons because you're expecting them to do things that they shouldn't do. You generally shouldn't hit quick buttons yourself against them.
Final round.
You should wake up with grabs or command grabs. Delayed grabs are the best. I should really be better at this given that this is an Omni Rabbit thing. Oof, missed up the spacing for that. Okay, let's try this instead. Ugh, I forgot how long that lasted. And I'm trying to lure them into throwing out claps when they shouldn't. Anyways, they timed that one better. Ugh, and I messed it up. Because I was too far into the dash. But you can see what the plan was. They want to play rock, so I was eventually just going to dash in and super them. So when you work on your execution, you get better at not flinching in matches. When you work on this, you get better at thinking in matches. Because I have more time to think about the fact that, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. For example, I think of this player as someone who, if I block their elbow, I can probably hit them with crouching medium kick. Why can I hit them with crouching medium kick? It's probably because they're gonna think of baiting me into something, and they're gonna get themselves messed up somewhere. That was supposed to be medium kick on my part, and that was okay on theirs. And I held down back. So my impatience is beating me here. I have places I could stand still. Like I could literally stand still. Because that doesn't bother me one bit. If you want to spend your ES meter on that mid-round, or start of round, no problem. Actually, I can stand still now too, and wait for them to do it again. See? Because now I've gotten rid of the ES clap problem. But I shouldn't have jumped forward. Because it didn't benefit me at all. This is the way you beat Lara. You beat Lara with mostly jumping like that. So I could probably build up some stuff by throwing out Hadoken. But I held down back. So now I have to give up some meter. And I hit the wrong kick, so that's going to become difficult. But you can see that their tendency is wide open to me. I really could just hold back on the stick a lot of this time. Well, on the pad. The problem with that is that in order for proximity blocking to be escaped, you have to make sure you are actually holding forward to do something. So you have to be very careful about how you execute those. Because otherwise they'll have the experience to zone you out with their spacing, like that. So now I need meter in order to end this fight, because even though it looks like I'm doing okay, I'm really not, because a zoner is able to pull a fight back after very slowly doing certain things for a long time. I'm supposed to have a particular response to that, which I haven't gotten back into my head yet. So, as you see, there's a lot of stuff they can do that would otherwise cause a problem. And because you become impatient, eventually you lose.
You win.
So let's try, we're probably hovering right around there. Oh, well, that's fine. Fortunately, as you can see, the way to play this can serve you right up into gold. You just have to be careful not to be too rigid in your classifications of players, or you'll get a little confused when they do something that you don't think they do. But give them a little time to get back to that. I gave the Lara time and they backed off to the other side of the screen. Do most Lara do that? They weren't really throwing out claps with the expectation that I was going to do anything. Maybe they did it because they've realized I was a pressure player, but I don't think so, because there was certainly some times where they just did that as their actual response to things. Again, once you get into gold, there are a lot of players who will have two ways of playing. One that they developed over time to deal with problematic situations for them. Might not be as good at it. And one that they default to. I still mistime that so much. Oh, let's grind a combo or two while we're up here. Nope. So once again, rocks, which are zoners, are beaten by close-in players if the players can close in, or stay close in. They beat pressure characters because their defense is good. Pressure characters beat paper, i.e. close-in players, because they are more comfortable scrambling and doing random things at close range. Lizards are generally not beaten by much except rock if you can't get in to do your naturalistic thing, or if the zoner has better experience zoning than you. I mean, if you're playing a zoner and playing most naturally, you're acting like a zoner, so let's assume that that's taken off the table. A naturalist doesn't get to do a bunch of natural things if they're being zoned out, so rock crushes lizard. Naturalists are immune to being analyzed. Lizard bites Spock.
Round one.
Spock deals with everything else because he's Spock. But, as mentioned, frustration players do have specific weaknesses and you can definitely do something about them. So what is this player? Well, the immediate thought would be that they are either frustration or pressure. I'm going to give them frustration as the call because the timings they do particular things don't indicate that they're taking me seriously in that straight sense at the moment. Players who are playing frustration and playing characters who have good rushdown don't normally need to do anything in particular. But they will tend to hit more weird buttons. They still have that I'm going to hit this because it works sort of thing. This one has a better anti-air, but that might be more so Kami anti-air power than the game they are playing or thinking about. But note the number of things they are oddly prepared for. Couldn't do that one. That doesn't combo that way. So if you take my style as a holistic thing, I am primarily a pressure player and also a naturalist, at least on Chun-Li. I'm fairly naturalist on Colleen. I think I'm not so much so on Bison. On Bison I'm usually trying to frustrate people. This person is almost certainly a frustration player though. They're going for as many mix-ups and weirdnesses as they can get. But they also don't try too hard to do certain things. So what I should do to defeat them, if I could have any chance of it at this point, is to just do naturalist things. To stop thinking and just beat them if I can. Also, please note that frustration players do not necessarily have weak anti-airs while they are on their backs, because there's nothing else to focus on. So you don't get to go, oh, well, this is a frustration player, so I can jump in on them because I've knocked them down. That's the one time you can't do it, because they are then focused, unlike a pressure player, on the thing that will frustrate you the most. And the thing that will frustrate you the most is them blocking correctly or anti-airing correctly. Oof. My problem with that move is that I never remember that it does that to me. Now actually, the way to beat Cammy is, again, to be a naturalist in certain ways. Chun-Li has the method. She can just hit medium kick in neutral most of the time and it will win. But obviously I'm not doing any of that, because I'm thinking pressure, I'm thinking how do I poke you more? But I don't need to. So let's try that. Let's try switching up to mostly focusing on the medium kick stuff and some wake up stuff. Of course, you have to remember a certain set of things that go along with that medium kick. Because the medium kick in Cammy's case puts her to the position where she can't do a lot of things. And I dropped it. But you can see, this is similar to the whole, what you just saw was actually similar to the whole jump in problem. Her forward heavy kick has the same sort of effect. But there, that's the mark of a frustration player. They spent that entire time waiting to do that because they're focused on what will be the most frustrating thing, the thing that will stop what I'm doing.
You lose.
So even if you are not playing well, even if you're autopiloting and looking back at your matches, you should still be able to pick out where you made the mistake based on what your opponent's mindset is, rather than making a mistake based on, oh, I didn't know what else to do. I made the mistake there, and it was fully a mistake. I didn't do it for demonstration. I wasn't watching meter well enough, and I'm obviously not completely focused on the game as I'm giving the lesson, but they were the type of player who were I playing at a high level, I should have been expecting exactly that response. There's no way that throwing the Hadoken was ever a good idea because they are a frustration player. It's not specifically because you should never throw a fireball against Cammy in that spacing. There are totally Cammy players out there who you should totally do that against. Not zoning Cammy, because that technically counts as a zoning move. But a pressure Cammy who you feel, okay, they're about to try to get back in on me to start pressure. And most definitely any close in Cammy, because they are not going to stay out there for that long without trying to think of something they can do to get in on you. So I should have totally thrown a fireball there against a naturalist Cammy sometimes, because they're thinking about all the different things they can do, or not thinking at all. They're not plotting against you. And I definitely should have thrown it against a pressure Cammy. But the other three, no. And frustration is literally the worst to have thrown that against. Because they went to that range in order to frustrate me into throwing the Hadoken or trying to dash. And the intention was to get that super out that way. And if I was playing at an optimal level, I would have tried to find some way to dodge the super. To twitch in such a way that makes them try to do it, but miss. Which would have been my own slightly sometimes frustrating attempt. But to me that's not being frustrating, because I don't play a character who has all of the tools for that. I would just be trying to do something that Chun-Li naturally does in order to succeed there. So let's see, as we move toward the end of the lesson stream, what kind of bison we've got.
Round 1.
Note, for those who are not aware, this stage's theme has in fact been updated, but I just have character themes as the thing I get against them. So we have a very slidey bison and one who does moves out in neutral. This is probably a zoning bison. Jumps away, hits buttons in neutral randomly-ish, probably not meaning to do anything in particular. He's willing to walk forward, but he's only walking forward against spacing for slide. So I can probably just wait until he walks forward and then block a slide. But note that if he's doing things correctly, he will never slide at a range where slide is easily punishable. So what I'm counting on is that if he starts to walk forward and I do anything, I'm going to have to punish slide with a light button rather than going for a full slide punish. But as you can see, he's used to being safe while doing certain things, and he always blocks certain things on my wake-ups. Right there I was expecting the slide, didn't get it, no big deal. And that made him nervous enough to try something. Probably was avoiding chip, or thinking about avoiding chip. Well, because I'm expecting him to effectively zone and hit a bunch of stuff in neutral that doesn't necessarily make sense in the strict sense of you should or should not be hitting this here, I'm going to do a lot of stuff like that. But that was bad because I should have expected his defense to be the delayed throw, because that's how zoners work. And I should have expected that to be EX for similar reasons. Also, that was probably not going to get hit by the EX bird even if I had tried, which is why I didn't do anything on the wake up. But I was safe when I did that. So let's try to focus in a little bit, and I'll talk a little less, and see if I can make any progress in the match itself. So mostly, he's going to be trying to hit buttons in neutral that make him unable to be hurt, and slide around and do stuff like that. You can tell he's not pressure, even though he's hitting light buttons, because light buttons don't lead to strings, and he's not in a particularly good position after hitting them most of the time. So walking backward. Hard to air as well, I should note. And zoners against this often cause me to need to do a particular form of head stomps. Wrong spacing. So, no benefit there. But I can see where I did it wrong. The head stomp needed to be done differently. I needed to watch out for more scissors because of the way he plays, and presumably him realizing that the slide works a particular way. And I need to push on him more in neutral, even though he doesn't really do that much directly. So, let's try this. Because that is the button that beats Bison's main movement pressure for Chun-Li. So against the owner who is trying to keep control of the situation, I can just probably hit this a lot more. Because he's not going to be thinking about buttons that beat that as much as most other players will. And then when that doesn't happen, I could try the Gikogans. So you can see this sort of player, this person, is sort of hybrid, in that they are using the sort of thing Bison uses to give him advantages. As well as other things. I keep on forgetting that doesn't work like that. But still, I can get a fairly large advantage by mostly just hitting that button and watching his spacing. Unfortunately, there's pretty much no way out of that directly, as much as I've been looking for one for a long time. It's unfortunate, but there's really no direct answer. So as you can see, knowing that he's his owner, knowing that he is not going to come to me, he's not going to give me any opportunity. But because he doesn't actually have a fireball he can throw at me without giving up some meter or something, I don't actually have to worry about him doing anything that I can't react to. I was explaining this to the group in general. There is a point where if I have meter, I fear nothing Bison does if I'm down backing. I just hold down back and fear nothing. I could mess up the timing and get hit by that, but I innately am not in fear of anything. Right, now he's gotten to the jump away from that, which is something that I will now attempt to exploit. But unfortunately, I'm also still, as I said, trying to do some things that I know are hard for me to do. I don't have the execution down for dash up instance yet. So, I probably should have gone for something else. But against his owner, their defense is usually going to be so solid that there's nothing you can do. You either get the dash up instant head stomp or you get nothing. Not because throwing is not an option, but because they're prepared for the throw tech. That's how zoners tend to play. So he's going to go back there, and I'm going to wait him up a little bit. Ooh, he got out of that. Good, good. That needed to be slide. No, actually that needed to be standing medium kick. I'll explain one day why I jump out of... Oh, well, there you go. I didn't have to explain the rest. You jump out of that because if you jump early enough, if you actually read the scissors, the head stomp, you can neutral jump it. It's difficult, but it can be done. Oof, did not expect double slide at all. Obviously my bad. Okay, so now I'm getting back to that point. Because I'm going to wait for him to try to get into slide range. I will take that all day. Well, not all day. But long enough to cause that to happen. Oof. I'm not sure what that was. I hope everyone saw it the same way I did. See? They're always waiting for that throw. So now we have the problem where I have no meter and he has meter. So it'll come down to the wire, and I don't really know what happened there. But again, that's precisely what I'm talking about. The zoner jumps in and hits standing heavy punch. Why? But it works. It works because I'm thinking, scissor time, let me hit some buttons. And I get hit. So, once again, even though I'm not playing well in the strict sense of understanding everything that could be done, this is the difference between playing well in that way and not. If I had been playing properly in that way, I would have realized, oh, what I'm about to do is a pressure character's response to being under pressure. At the end of a round, I'm freaking out, I'm going to hit buttons, hoping that they mess up something. But I'm going up against the rock, and they're going to take advantage of that and probably win. 1 point. So we're bringing the stream to a close now. I've said basically all I have to say. I'm wondering if something has slowed me down to the point where this combo became hard. This is probably the final match. Hopefully we'll get something good that demonstrates and puts a good cap on what I've had to say for the night. This video is likely to be less edited than others. But hopefully we get a good final match. And what points am I at now? Should I be trying to win this? Main character Ken. High up. I'm at 1845. That's about where I started. That's usually where I can still do proper stuff with Colleen. And they'll feel good if they rank up, so I'm not going to try too hard. I shouldn't really have too much trouble losing if this Ken is
Round 1.
zony or frustrated. If they're pressury, I might end up defeating them without meaning to. Looks like... yeah, zoner. Or frustration. Because the question, the way that you tell that at that point is... no, this is zoner, never mind. Remember that zoning Ken has that one weird thing about him where, because he has... zoners hit strong, unsafe moves in neutral. But the problem with Ken is that Ken's strong, unsafe move is Shoryuken. It causes zoning Kens to get beat up pretty bad sometimes. And because zoning Kens have basically been told, hey, if you really want to zone in with Hadokens, play Ryu. It's mean to say, but Ken tends to get the rejects of the zoning pile. A little laggy. Drop the combo, but it's still okay. So unfortunately, this zoning Ken is not taking their zoning seriously enough. But you can still tell that they're zoning Ken, because they're hitting too many unsafe things that are meant to beat stuff and keep you in a place. So they're just throwing Hadokens at particular spaces while doing other similar things. If they take their zoning a bit more seriously, I'd assume that the reason they play like this is because they don't have as much faith in their anti-airs as they need to. Oh, here we go. We're seeing it. Maybe. Or maybe the lag is not helping. But see, this is them showing their zoning nature now. They could do more things, but they don't. They're waiting for me, and they're not waiting for me in the I know exactly what to do to you sense. They're waiting for me in the alright, I'm gonna hit buttons because these buttons are the ways to stay safe in this situation. So what I should do here, if I want to bring this all the way back, is to counter zone. which is really hard to do in my situation, but I can manage it to some extent. Did too far, and that was supposed to be something else. Well, no, should have been something else. I have bad habits in terms of jump-ins. Good stuff. Not so good stuff. Oh, I messed up the timing on it. Good, good. So when you see zoning Ken, you shouldn't necessarily assume, oh, they're throwing out Hadoken, they're throwing out Shoryukens like they don't know what they're doing. That means that they're pressure or something else. No, they're still zoning. That's just how Ken does that. That's right, so they've got their points back, and we're now going into the final match, probably. And if they win, they get to rank up. Feel probably good, I hope. But would they? I'm not sure. But I can't just hand it to them. So, let's work out a counter strategy for zoning Ken. He's not going to move too much. He's going to be looking to... That there is the reason why zoners do that, by the way. It's a counter... It's a counter to counter zoning. Oh, that doesn't work that way. It's nice to know. Should have known that before, honestly, but I guess it doesn't always happen. Note, again, the zoning tendency. He's doing the crouching moves to keep me from walking away. That's why you have to be really careful to save your reversals, because zoners don't really like try to keep you in a particular space anyway, other than to do that. So you can usually get away from them by holding your V reversal long enough to block and get out of stuff when they're close, rather than worrying about pressure that you have to use the V reversal for. All that sort of tactics comes in here. Come on, work a little harder and get your win. That's better. That was bad in many ways, but I don't understand all of them. Because should not be able to get a Shoryuken there because he's not thinking on that level. And similarly. There we go. Only a zoner would have hit that right there. So anyway, as to how I'm supposed to win this now. I should probably do nothing. See? Because he doesn't really know what to do here. Even if I'm willing to just stay in the corner entirely, it makes things difficult for him. But that would never have worked, for example. Because he's a zoner, so he's going to block it. Sorry, I guess you don't get to rank up this time.
You win.
You are getting close to a rank up.
And that's a good place to sit in terms of points. That's a good place to end our stream for the night. Once again, if you have any questions about this video, either from YouTube or otherwise, or you want to try to use any of our bots, such as the Colleen bot that has been playing between matches today, you can find it on 2-mk.org. And this video, once edited, should end up in our fighting game advice section. But once again, please make sure that if you are recommending this video to your friends, that you are not recommending it to anyone who is in gold rank or higher than that, because to them, this piece of information is probably something they already know and does not really apply to their overall experience. It is a good stepping stone toward becoming better at the game, but it will only last as long as your opponents don't know it themselves and therefore spend more time learning how to deal with or counter them. Once you have done so yourself, hopefully it will help you get into gold, and then you will have to worry about this on a whole nother level. This is Rillian for the 2MK group signing off for the night.